Morning!
Madnin!
Welcome to the India Explained podcast, recorded in London and San Francisco. One take, unscripted, no rehearsal.
Hey Bunty, good morning. Greetings from San Francisco. Hope everything is good at your end in London.
Everything is fine, Rohit. Today is a very exciting day for us on this podcast because, this is our 50th podcast going out. And one of the things that we decided to do, Rohit, we were just discussing how, we've received a tremendous amount of support and encouragement from all our listeners across the world. And what started off as a kind of speculative project between you and me about 8 months ago has a kind of a regular group of listeners, a regular group of people who interact with us. And we thought the best way to do the 50th episode would be to talk through the body of podcasts that we've done, just a walk down memory lane. And that's what we'll do today, Rohit. Does that sound like a good idea?
Sounds fantastic. And I just want to, echo what you said. Big shout out to our listeners. We are very, very grateful to those of you who've, taken the effort to subscribe. We again very much appreciate that. That really means a lot to us, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on SoundCloud, whether it's on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, which are all the places our RSS feed goes out to. Really, what we're doing here is it's Bunty and me talking, but the real interlocutors, the real conversation we're having is with all of you, and I think we've been growing, steadily. We don't believe, unlike Indian television channels, in inflating ratings and the like. But I think we've got a meaningful, good audience, good size audience for a podcast which is growing. Again, we don't have any advertising. I just want to mention a couple of other things, that a few changes are in the offing. I don't want to do this as a version of a coming soon web page, which is kind of meaningless. But just kind of to let our listeners know that we will be getting into a more formalized setup with some syndication happening, possibly some advertising. But I promise you nothing that will interrupt the tenor of the conversations, which presumably is what people like, and just a little more, sort of a slightly more souped up, a little more sort of professionally jazzed up version of what we do. We are new at this, and I think we still consider ourselves relatively new at this, at least in the amateur category. But we are getting professionalized by the by. So much very grateful to everyone, and many, many thanks.
Achha, so now let's, Rohit, jump into episode 50. As we said, we take a walk down memory lane, and our memories start on episode 5. Because before that we hadn't used YouTube, and we weren't even sure whether we would make it till episode 4, because we were doing this on weekends and it was on free time. And we started talking about the Cadbury's chocolate ad. That was the first one that's posted, which is a chocolate ad from the 80s. And then we very quickly dovetailed into episode 6 was about Lal Batti, which was the story about red lights being banned, or restrictions on red lights for VIP people. They were being banned, and we celebrated that. Do you remember that?
Right, I do. It's like it is a memory still. We've done so many episodes, but I do have a kind of memory of that. And let me just pull this up. And I think that we shifted pretty quickly, in the sense that, we will do these, we do refer back to the 80s and early 90s, which are, the years when we were in India, but early to mid 90s. But I think, to me, one of the interesting things that happened fairly quickly is that these memories of the, that particular time, which are so firmly etched in our minds, are not memories that are shared by a lot of people, because you have generation after generation which has grown up in post-liberalization TV. So the amount of content they've been exposed to is, compared to what we were exposed to in the 80s and early 90s, the amount of content successive generations have been exposed to post-91 is so large, so voluminous, that, particular things like individual ads and so on don't maybe stand out to them. So yes, here
correct.
I am.
And we were experimenting with a format. We started off with an ad, then we did Lal Batti, and I then remember the next story we did was slightly controversial by our standards, which was the guy in Kashmir being tied in front of the jeep. And I remember we took a bit of stick for putting across the review that we did. And then the next two episodes were again two ads from the 80s. And very soon we realized that ads from the 80s probably wasn't the way to go.
Right.
Obviously, it was entertaining for us because we were throwing things back, and therefore our coverage. What we decided then was made a conscious decision to try and talk more about more topical issues that are newsworthy. So what I've kind of lost my feed here on the YouTube because my Wi-Fi is acting up. But what was the next thing that we did, Rohit? If you step in here.
Yeah, sure. So we did some, and I think we were sort of still we were trying to get a range of different kinds of stories. The small human interest story, the large political story, the offbeat story. So we did the ads, we did Pan Parag, we did Dabur Lal Dant Manjan. Then we did an episode on farmers, and I'm actually just going to click on this for a second. This was, I think, about... all right, so it's just the morning that showed up. But yes, this was about, the droughts that have been leading to farmer suicides and the like. We did one story on that. Then we did a story that I enjoyed very much. I enjoy all of them in different ways. This was about a story called The Bookman. And to me, this was a partly nostalgia story because it was about a Calcutta that I love very much. And it's about a gentleman in Calcutta who, whatever book you want, you get in touch with him. On his two-wheeler, he will find the book from somewhere and get it for you.
Right.
We did a couple of episodes then. We did one on drunk rats, which was about...
Yeah, this is about illegal liquor the police saying the liquor stash diminished because rats drank it.
9 lakh liters, boss. It basically didn't diminish. Diminish is politely putting it bluntly, it vanished. So ever since Nitish Babu introduced prohibition in Bihar, obviously boozing is illegal, but people are going to booze. I think whether it's the history of prohibition in the US or, Morarji's, Morarji Desai's morality being writ large in certain Indian states and so on, we know that doesn't work. So obviously there is a kind of black market that developed for it. People who are well connected, politically connected, I'm sure have like the daru flows at their events. But the cops also confiscate a lot. And then what the cops do is they sell it at a premium, probably have a swig or two and then sell the rest at a premium. So this 9 lakh liters that was worth of alcohol that was in some, thana or collectively in some, I don't know, maybe his police stations in a city or district, I don't remember. But that's the amount that vanished. And when the cops were asked to explain, they said that rats drank it all. And of course...
So that was a hilarious one. And just in the interest of moving on, I can't recollect. I remember the one that we did, Fact or Fiction, which was about and Fluff Guevara.
Right.
That's episode... There was a special episode, Fluff Guevara,
right.
And episode 13 was Fact or Fiction, which I can't remember exactly. But I know episode 14 was about Justin Bieber coming to a concert and lip syncing. And then kind of episode 15 was how money for Swachh Bharat initiatives were disappearing and toilets weren't getting made.
Right.
That takes us to episode 15. Do you recollect what we did on episode 13? It said Fact or Fiction. I'm just saying the headline.
I looked at it. So it was a kind of offbeat episode and it was kind of a bit of an outlier. But what we were doing was we were comparing the film Kurbani, something in the film Kurbani, with the epidemic of false news. Now,
yes.
The specifics, however, escaped me. And then
look. I mean, what we're trying to do is walk through what we talked about for the last 8 months. So, for me, it's good that we are also learning about how we kind of progressed our discussions. And then I remember we went through a stage of episode 16 to 20, which was all very, very topical issues. It was about a lady who kind of took vengeance on an arranged marriage situation, a judge who was acting beyond his remit,
and I
general.
will just make a small shout out. Just to give a shout out, not a small shout out, but a big shout out to Ayush Soni. Right, Ayush is our man on the ground in Delhi, and he for a number of episodes he has basically been in the trenches, giving us the view on the ground as it happens, and he sends these 1 to 1.5 minute clips, and we use those as a kind of platform for the discussion on the day. But you're right.
Correct.
So we did these very specific ones. Revolver Rani, India's General Fear, who was chest thumping.
Yeah. And then Paisa Vasool was about the train, the air-conditioned train which got trashed on its first ride out.
Right.
Pure and Clean was, I think, this was about, how people, rituals of cleanliness in India.
Right.
And I think we should kind of take a pause for breath at episode 21, which we call The Last Emperor. And on YouTube, it got us the highest number of views to date, which was basically about NDTV being made a scapegoat by the BJP government for a range of things. And that kind of takes us to kind of episode 21. So it's just kind of a very quick whistle-stop tour of, the work that we've done up until then. And this is about 5 months ago. Then I remember we talked about the Air India privatization, which was episode 22, Flying Low. And I remember the most interesting thing there was how both of us observed that we had got strong connections with our memories of flying and what Air India stood for, and how a disservice was being done to the national carrier because it was being run by basically people who were not trained to run the airline business. They didn't know how to do it.
Right.
I think then there was a special episode of India-Pakistan cricket matches and cricket rivalry. And then we talked about Bihari Love. Absolutely not. The Bihari Love visual on YouTube is one of my best visuals so far.
Yeah, so it's okay. Now I remember what it was, and I had forgotten the story. What happened is, there's a dude who was bitten by a snake.
Yes, snake bite man. Yes,
and he thought that he was going to chakas it. And then he decided that if I'm going to go, let me take my wife with me. So he bit her. I don't know what happened. I think he died, she survived, or whatever. That was it. But that image is beautiful. It's it really is wonderful.
That is So episode 24 was Iftar WTF because the BJP didn't attend the president's Iftar Dawat.
Right.
Nobody from the government attended, which was very odd. And then special episode we did one about car buying, and then episode 25. By the time we come to episode 25, the country is broken out into protests about something being widespread. Rohit, I'm just going to try and pull up. Can you recollect what is in a name? That episode was not in my name. That was not in my name.
This is what's in the name. I think talk about the not in London. Right. So it's not in a name. It's basically the fact that a number of members of civil society had taken out these protests saying that these lynchings of minorities, assaults on Muslims, particularly but Dalits also, I think, that were taking place. For Muslims, it was on grounds of them carrying beef, that this was not in their name. They were protesting to it. So that was it. And then, so we did a number of other, things that, again, similar to, the Bihari Love. We did one on snake dancing. We've dancing in the northern cow belt at various occasions where it is opportune, like weddings, as well as random occasions, is a theme we've gone back to. I think we
repeatedly, yes.
We covered the goods and services tax. We did a couple of special episodes on the NRI, which I think a number of people enjoyed, and I think we got some good responses to those when we posted these links on Twitter as well. Then there was one about an very odd. Not odd, but I would say that, it was an unusual but also a very sad story about villagers leaving their elderly family members to be eaten by tigers so that they could, on the grounds of some policies, get compensation from them. There was a kind of quasi-Orientalist story, but the Orientalism was in the fact of the story rather than our perception about an Indian godman who had died, but because his followers were fighting over his assets, his body had still been frozen. And his followers refused to believe that he had actually died. They were waiting for him to come back to life.
This was Thanda
Baba. And then 30 was about,
lady police.
Who are getting, women police officers are getting assaulted by random people at Delhi airport and so on. So we use that to talk about the larger sort of condition of women in public space in India.
And then I think then we kick in about episode 31, 32 was generally about, one was about state surveillance or use of CCTV,
Right,
and the other
exactly.
was general apathy to a bunch of things. And those were the two episodes that kind of set us up for the Independence Day specials. We ran about 3 Independence Day specials, making various observations on, where we stood at this important juncture in time with the politics and the country as we saw it. And then we segued through episode 33, as you mentioned, Rohit, into another dancing in UP episode. And you're right, it's about the cowbell dancing that keeps coming up. And then by episode 34, we were back at another Baba, this time the Ram Rahim guy, who was, there was a lot of chaos because he was rightfully being arrested. And we were very perplexed as to why this would happen. And then we, after that, Dodgy Baba, so Thanda Baba followed Dodgy Baba. No, Thanda Baba led up to Dodgy Baba. And then we did a couple of episodes on money. Or the money,
Money troubles. I think it was about
the money troubles.
demonetization.
Yes.
Demonetization.
Demonetization. And I think one of the things that we started doing, when people listen to our podcast, sometimes they like to feel that there is a distinct political axe that we've got to grind. And we both take the effort to say that, look, we are trying our best to call it as we say it. Now, by calling out a few people like Dodgy Babas, Thanda Babas, if it makes us seem left of center, it's a label that we're happy to ride with, because this is not a channel that will celebrate odd babas. Anyway, episode 35 was floods. We felt that it was very disappointing that in a city like Bombay, with the civic infrastructure of in India's business metropolis in such a bad state. Episode 36, we talked about Gauri Lankesh and her murder and her unexplained murder, which was a really sad thing for free speech. And episode 37, by the time we got to episode 37, both of us decided that we need to do something about Mamata Banerjee in West Bengal and her posturings of being a secular leader, because far from it, she was a very devious vote bank politician and who was trying to leverage Muslim vote banks, like the Amit Shah is trying to do certain things on Hindu fault lines.
I just want to,
that was... Yeah, go on.
Sorry. I just want to go back and mention this point about these accusations of partisanship, and there's some accusations that we periodically get about being Congress agents, and we are in touch with the wire, and we are part of some orchestrated conspiracy against Hindus, the BJP and the Hindu right, and that's I just want to sort of signal the absurdity of that. That I don't think that we should confuse. So-called objectivity with or political neutrality with fairness, and I think fairness is the deeper principle here, because I really don't think there is such a thing as being politically neutral or objective. I know that it's a kind of cherished principle in American journalism schools, and I think, let me just put my cards on the table, I think it's a completely absurd idea, because to claim that you are being apolitical is itself a political position. To claim that you're being neutral or non-ideological is itself a profoundly ideological position. To claim that you're being objective, there are a whole sort of very troubling politics of objectivity. So I think that we make our political stand clear. We think that there are certain things that are beyond the pale. We think there are certain things that are non-negotiable. There are certain issues on which Bunty and I, both of us, don't agree or have different points of view, I would say. But I think we try. I think it's better to be fair, to put that point of view out, and I think we try to be fair in terms of the implications we draw, saying that this is what my read on the matter is, this is what the story is telling me, and we are completely open to criticism. I'm very happy. We are very happy. What we want is listeners who are engaged, and we're very happy when people write in at length and disagree with us, and we think that's absolutely essential to any kind of media or public sphere. So please keep doing it. Yeah, the occasional abusive email that we get, it would be nice if we didn't get that. Again, it doesn't bother us too much. So I just want to put this point out there.
No, very, very well said. And I think that kind of dovetails into one of the more absurd stories that we did, which was Pigeon Problems, which is a guy who was so drunk that he was talking to a pigeon. Again, this was in Bihar somewhere. Then we talked about a fabulous
Sorry, it
air
was in South
marshal.
India. It was in South India.
It was sorry, it was South India. Sorry, for
Yeah.
change. Yes, it was not dancing in the UP. Then we talked about the fabulous air marshal who died, a truly brilliant man, and that kind of rolled up into a special episode about Amit Shah's son, who was caught up in a company that had disproportionate amounts of revenue. Again, we got a few oddball emails and comments about that, and lo and behold, the next thing that we do is talk about a mad mullah who kind of issues fatwas to women
Right.
about how they should behave and how they should dress, which is like a really really odd thing. And then that's kind of a whistle stop tour about what we did up until episode 40, which was about the food problem in India. That how many young school kids go,
Right.
not school kids, how many people go hungry. There's this kind of a world number that was rolled out around hunger index, and India had slipped, and we called that out. That that is a failing, no matter how you look at it. And do you want to talk about episode 41, Rohit, onwards?
Sure. So I think 41 was about Arvind Kejriwal's car getting stolen but also recovered.
Yeah.
And we use that to sort of segue into a broader discussion about governance, politics, and the like. We did a couple on the upcoming Gujarat elections, which are still upcoming, and they've been delayed. The election commission has been partly, stymied by this, really by the Modi government, which in many ways is not very democratic. We did one on UP, the Yogi Sarkar taking Taj off the list of tourist, destinations which are promoted and so on, plus a lot of unnecessary comments, in my view, about Taj not being really Indian because of its so-called Muslim provenance. We continued talking about this majoritarian streak of nationalism, patriotism, with these demands that the national anthem should be sung before Bollywood films. We did one on a list of Indian academics all over the world who are accused of sexual assault, and there was a bit of a flap in the media about it. This was a list put up by women on social media, and the existence of the list itself, the women said, was essentially a reflection of the fact that the normal channels of justice in these matters don't function well. One on a think tank, the India Foundation, which has the son of the National Security Advisor Doval as its head, but also has all kinds of links to the government and raises questions of conflicts of interest. The Padmavati controversy, which is still going on. An offbeat story followed about a man who went to get his iPhone on a horse, almost in wedding style, I would say. Correct. Then we did one on the smog, and I don't know if you're following cricket, but I was up till a little late last night watching the Delhi Test match, and there was a very strange sight. There were a number of long animated discussions where the Sri Lankan players who were wearing these masks because of the terrible smog were actually insisting that play be stopped, and I believe it was stopped a couple of times. So that was to do with the terrible pollution and the crisis. And then I'll leave it to you, Bunty, to take up the last 2 or 3 episodes that we did leading up to this one.
Yeah, I think episode 48 was Indigo Airline, which was, we did one on Air India, but Indigo was about, the staff holding back a customer. And what we did was we sidestepped the whole story and took it from what would the customer have done to get that reaction, and how people in India behave with people who are meant to be providing service, because they've got this kind of Naukar Malik dynamic, which is not about service but about subservience. And we spoke at length about that on episode 48. I think just squaring off episode 47, as you rightly mentioned, Rohit, was about smog, and I noticed that at the cricket too. But I think there was some of it was pollution and some of it was Sri Lankan game playing. And finally, which brings us to episode 49, which is train troubles, which is, a train that was headed for one place got misdirected at Mathura Junction. And we did an exploration of what might have transpired that that time when and how the social space of trains and train travel is changing. So as you guys, people who are listening, can make out that, over a span of 50 episodes, there are certain things that we can recollect vividly as we get closer to the timeline, and obviously there are certain things that need a bit of scratching around for Rohit and me to research, and that's why you could hear our call sign morning every time we would try and play and bring that link up. But that's been that 50 episode journey, whether it's been ads from the 80s to, odd vestiges of Hindu practices through Babas, whether it's mad Muslim mullahs, whether it's politicians, nepotism, silly things like people getting drunk and talking to birds. So I think we are we're trying to accommodate as diverse a set of views as we can. And we are enjoying doing it, and I hope you're enjoying listening to it.
Yeah, and I'll just want to mention a couple of other things. We are very grateful again for the interest we've got from listeners and others. We did a Reddit Ask Me Anything a couple of weeks ago. We were interviewed by Amer of Patari, which is a podcast program that's aimed at a diasporic Pakistani and South Asian population more broadly, based in New York. So we're very grateful for that. And I think, not to be like the...
And also the Hindu, Rohit, we must mention the Hindu.
Yes, of course. And I should mention that we were covered in the Hindu, and we are grateful to them for reaching out to us and doing a story on us. I think age-wise, I'm now in that sort of uncle territory, so not to sound like an uncle giving gyan, but one of the things I would say is that what I think is really missing, what we want in media is a diversity of voices. Because no one sector, whether it's print, whether it's digital, whether it's TV, no one channel, no one organization, or no one individual is going to be able to cover or even address the nuances of just the amazing breadth of perspectives there are on an issue. So the more voices we have, I think the better it is. And my suggestion would be, I really think that this podcast medium is a medium for people to make their own voices heard, whether it's on a niche area, whether it's something very specific like, love for music, or an art-centered podcast, or a more general, all over the place podcast like we are. I really think it's a wonderful way for people to, engage in the civic act of really reflecting on your society, which is what media should do, but also just to have conversations with each other and have fun. So we would just strongly recommend podcasting to anyone and everyone.
Absolutely, Rohit. Well, look, it's brilliant. This episode feels a bit self-congratulatory because we've been backslapping each other about the work that we've done. But I think it's worth it between the both of us, and I hope to the people who are listening to us that we never thought when we started doing this that we'd make it to 50 episodes. Right. So this is an important milestone for us, which we wanted to celebrate between the both of us and share with you. And I hope that we go to 100 and more and beyond, and keep growing and get the level of support and interest that we've got to date.
Fantastic. And in a country where people, congratulate themselves for getting into the Guinness Book of World Records for growing hair, growing nails, at least this has shown a little more energy. So, okay.
Chalo, take care. Bye-bye.